Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our meeting presenting the results after the first quarter of 2021. We have been joined by the whole management board, plus Director Rafał Lechowicz, President of the Board in Alupol Packaging Company, and the presentation will be started, as always, by Dariusz Mańko, President of the Board. Next, we will pass on to segment presentations, followed by financials, and followed by the Q&A session. Let me remind you that you can send your question to my email address mmalin@grupakent.com or via Zoom chat that is available on Zoom. You can send your questions this way as well. I will read the questions in the end and we will hear the answers. I think we can start now. I will show you our presentation in the moment. It has been published on our website. That's the information for those of you who have not downloaded it yet. And the President, the floor is yours. Over to you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is our yet another remote meeting. You can see me, I can't see you, but I have a good faith that after the second quarter we will be able to hold our meeting in Warsaw and we will be able to see each other and talk in a traditional way. At first, I would like to apologize that I will not be able to stay with you until the end of our meeting because I have medical tests and today it's impossible to actually reschedule those tests, so I have to actually be there at 1 p.m. So I will not be able to stay with you until the very end in the second half of the presentation. But should you have any questions, please call us, contact us at any time. We are open to actually answer your queries. Send them directly at me or to the members of the board. Rafał Lechowicz and other members of the board will be able to actually answer all your queries. Ladies and gentlemen, the first quarter was probably the most difficult quarter as regards the coronavirus pandemic. Well, it disturbed our work. We had the biggest number of cases and quarantines, and we had to face this situation. It was not always so good. This week we have said goodbye to our great colleague Stanisław Mazur, 54-year-old economy expert, a wonderful, excellent man who helped me to lay the foundations for the controlling before it was in Metal Plast. That's the previous name of the Aluprof today. So he was actually working in controlling in that collection. A wonderful man who lost his fight to a very strong coronavirus case. And let me pay my respect to him and mention him today during our meeting because definitely he had a huge contribution in those good results that will be presented today by us. And other subjects. Before I start the presentation, I'd like to thank you for your acknowledgement because all the competitions and comparisons, rankings have been ended, and Grupa Kęty has always been highly appreciated, one of the five best companies. So the whole management board and me personally would like to thank you for your trust. And this trust is definitely important to us and mobilizes us for further work, even more efforts, and positively affects us. And now passing on to the presentation on the first quarter. Well, just like during the previous conferences, this year is a raw material year. I'm sure you've been observing the situation in raw materials and unbelievable growth That's the one thing, but also the lack of raw materials, which is another element that is important here. Well, this is this kind of year that comes once in a while in a cycle, and weak companies are hit very hard, but luckily we're not one of those weak companies, so I can safely tell you that me and the gentlemen, my colleagues, are old hands, and we know how to deal with this situation, and that is actually reflected in our results after the first quarter. And later on you will see the financial results presented by the financial director, but well, I can tell you this now. We have not expected to deliver such great results. Well, 200 million in EBITDA, 1 billion in turnover. Well, this is a great result. So we are using this kind of turbulence on the market, and we try to squeeze out everything that we can out of this situation. So objectively, we have to say that we are supported by the good economic situation. So it affects all the three segments. So there is no better situation for a manufacturing company that has a full portfolio booked, and this is a great situation. When we are fully booked, then we can actually work on the orders in the best possible way. So we've recorded the growth in all segments. And now about the investments, they are continued according to the schedule as planned in the budget for 2021. In the meantime, as you can see, we recommended a record dividend to be paid out for our shareholders. Well, we are a dividend company, selected as the best dividend company, and this is what we want to continue. And in addition to the everyday operational work that will be presented by my colleagues later on, we also continue searching for a possible investor for Alupol packaging. It is according to the schedule, and we are expecting more offers in May, and we will be informing you about any important developments in this area. Well, we are very optimistic about the second quarter and the whole year. Maybe the second half of the year will not be as dynamic as the first quarter of 2021, but well, quite recently we have been changing our forecast for 2021. We had to verify our forecasts, and we are convinced that we will be able to deliver the forecast and our promises. We are definitely determined to ensure you that your shares, your investment is in good hands. We are determined uh, so that every year, 2021, next year, and during the 5-year horizon that we've outlined for ourselves, to make our shareholders who trust us quite comfortable, as we did in the past and as we plan to do this in the future. So that's all from me. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, I am open. Should you have any questions, please email us, contact Michal, phone us, and definitely we'll be able to schedule a conversation. Well, some of us have already been vaccinated, some of us went through the coronavirus, and we are planning to actually run a vaccination process among our employees, and we hope to be able to have you in our manufacturing plants quite soon. So that's all from me, and I give the floor to Rafał, who will continue the presentation. Yes, thank you so much. So the first part of our presentation on the operating activity will be delivered by Rafał Lechowicz, who is the president of the board in Alupol Packaging. Now over to you, Rafał. Thank you so much. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, from very windy but sunny Tychy city. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just finished the first quarter of 2021, and that was a record quarter when it comes to the revenues and generated profits in both segments. And let's start with the results. And despite a very aggressive activity of the competition, our company grew by 16% as compared to 2020, reaching 284 million zloty in sales, 183 million generated by packages and 121 by foils. At the same time, the operational profit grew by 68%, 69 million zloty. In packaging, it was 40 million zloty, and in films, 29 million zloty, with the margin close to 24% across both segments. EBITDA grew by 54% to reach a record 77 million. In packaging, it was 46 million zloty, and in films, 31 million zloty. EBITDA margin across the segment reached 27% or slightly over 28% in packaging and 25.5% in foils. Traditionally, the biggest growth was on net profit level, which was 62.5 million zloty versus 30 million zloty last year, which was equal to nearly 100% growth of this parameter, which includes 7.5 million of positive effect resulting from the increased asset for deferred tax. And now let's move on to the market situation. Ladies and gentlemen, during the last 6 months, we've seen a very spectacular, unprecedented growth of the raw material prices. Well, the granulates grew by several percent, and foils grew, polyester, paper, and other raw materials are also growing when it comes to prices, and they are all used by Alupol packaging. And despite the growth in prices, the availability of raw materials is very limited, which is mostly affected by the force majeure and the limited transport, international transport, and that means really big challenge for us in the coming quarters, because we need to keep ensure the deliveries for our customers, whereas the drastically growing cost of production will have to be at least partially translated into our customers. So what's important here is the stability of sales. Still, 50% of total sales is attributable to our export. We are exporting to Germany, Netherlands, and Italy. Unfortunately, HoReCa, the industry, is still in very tough situation. Well, I keep informing you about that. So both us and our competitors, we are forced to compensate the lost profits, which and work harder on other segments, which actually leads to price wars in this market that used to be so stable. Well, unfortunately, we also have to translate some of the prices, especially in packaging. The raw materials are more expensive. The prices, the growing prices, have to be translated into the customers. Well, despite that, our capacities were fully booked. And versus the previous year, they grew by 6,000 tons because we finalized the validation of the second BOPP line. And as you know, those machines need time to actually start working on 100% capacity. Well, they need time to reach this potential. So this machine was launched in 2019 in the very end. So in 2021, the production capacities were growing systematically. When it comes to the replacements, well, they are according to the plan. We have spent 10 million zloty until today out of 20 million zloty that are planned to be spent during 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all from me. I am still open and I will stay with you until the end of the conference should you have any questions. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you, President. And now we are moving into the extruded product segment, and Piotr Wysocki, over to you. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. After the first quarter in extruded product segment, we can say that it was a very good quarter. Let me start my presentation with the aluminium industry global situation on the markets. Well, we can see a trend on the stock exchanges when it comes to aluminium prices. This is over 2,500, well over 2,500. So we are coming to very high levels. Another important element that makes it more expensive market is the material used for the billets by us. So the first quarter was ended at the level of 800 dollars paid per ton of billet, but today we are talking about $1,000 per ton of billet. These are the marketplace prices. Today the situation is that metal plus billet is about 35 or $3,600, and the average value metal plus billet was 3,700 dollars, which was in 2006 or 7. So we are actually coming into a maximum price that used to be recorded when it comes to this element. So we may safely say that the market is becoming expensive. But we are actually translating that effectively onto our customers, hence the results after the first quarter. Another global element in this quarter was the final imposition by the European Commission of the aluminium prices, anti-dumping duties on aluminium extrusions from China, 30% penalty tariff over the next 5 years. So they reduced the share of Chinese supplies to the EU market. So the big the fact that we are definitely very booked right now is actually a result of the situation that the Chinese profile supplies are not sent to Europe in such great numbers anymore. Now let's look at the first quarter financials and the sales of volume. Well, it increased by 9% during the first quarter, and the sales by 16%. But this is also connected with the fact that during the first quarter we had more aluminium, higher aluminium than in 2020. The EBITDA grew very nicely. The fully booked presses helped us to effectively manage the volume and manufacture even more efficiently. We could actually plan our work in such a way that we could actually extrude to maximum, and great EBITDA also was helped by better margin. So we increased the margin, and we used the situation that we had so much demand on the market. And now structure of sales by branches. Well, the biggest driver was the transport and motors, automotive industry. So we are manufacturing for various brands. So as you can see, automotive is not just one brand, but the whole market grew by 30% in our sales. And now directions. Well, Poland is our main market, but German market is doing very nicely. Also, our foreign companies, Alupol Ukraine in March, the sales there was record when it comes to tons, a record-setting situation. So also another company and another other foreign companies are doing very, very nicely as well. And now the capacities, production capacities are on very high levels, 95% utilization of the production capacities. We are trying to extrude even more, use the machines even better to increase our production capacities. We have some investments, 2000 press, which is our biggest investment that is being implemented right now. We've signed contracts for the deliveries of the equipment. The assembly will start in April because the production process of such machine, well, this is a technological line, takes time. So in April 2022, we will start assembly, and in July, August, we will have the first hot billet. So this will be just the startup. So next year, we will be able to manufacture several tons in this new investment and actually put it on the market. So if we continue, the situation continues, well, the demand will be really high. Other investments, so the production tools, matrices, well, this is something that is absolutely necessary for our whole production process, but the whole um, investment process is according to the plan. Well, let me tell you that the whole situation is very good in the second quarter as well. So that's all from me. And let's move on to the Aluminium Systems segment and Tomasz Grela, president of Aluprof SA, our flagship brand in Aluminium Systems. So over to you, Tomasz. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome very cordially. Let me start with the situation on the domestic and foreign market. So our situation at the moment, well, according to the expectations, annual expectations, well, a lower dynamics on office investment market as we said it last year because of COVID. This segment was badly affected by COVID pandemic, and a similar situation is in investments, big investments in hotel industry. Well, we are observing that the investments are postponed or stopped. Well, on big structures market, the situation is more difficult, but when it comes to the housing market and developers situation, well, it's completely different. So the first quarter, during the first quarter, the biggest number of construction permits for individual customers were issued, which translates into what we produce for the residences and the housing developers, and that helped us to actually go over the budget forecasts. Now, foreign markets, all markets recorded growth of sales versus last year, especially United Kingdom should be emphasized here because last year because of Brexit and coronavirus, the situation was worse, and now it is actually going quite dynamically, and the forecasts for the future look very promising, which means the growth of sales by 30% year on year, which is actually very good with the very good high price of the foreign currency, and that affects positively EBITDA. Well, other export markets, growth of interest in our products in the residence housing market. Well, that was problematic for us in the past, but the situation is actually improving, and that's a good sign for the future. Well, the situation in our industry, similarly to the whole market, is very special, very unique. During my career, I have not seen this kind of strange, but because of that difficult quarter, well, the price of aluminium is as it is, but well, it's important to mention other raw materials that are necessary for our sales, and we have 25,000 elements in our portfolio, and a lot of them made of aluminium. So lack of any raw materials such as rubber, steel, resins will actually make it impossible for us to offer a complete solution, because now we also have a facility in our group, but without those raw materials, we wouldn't be able to deliver the product. But we've been actually in similar position. And last year, we were actually doing the stocks of all type of raw materials that we felt that may be problematic this year. Therefore, we can safely say that with bigger stocks, we won. And the similar situation is with aluminium, where the prices are growing very fast. It's unprecedented. So our policy that was focused on growing our stocks translated to the results on EBITDA level, which is very positive. And the numbers as follows. Sales over 410 million, the growth by 23% year on year. As I've mentioned, it should be emphasized 40% growth of foreign sales, which translated into EBITDA that reached over 73 million zloty, which is 20% growth year on year. How did we react? How did we respond to higher prices of raw materials? Mid-year, we've actually corrected our price list. Our segment is characterized by a completely different approach to sales prices, different than my colleague segments. We have a stable price list. The last time we changed our price list, it was 3 years ago. So we are a guarantor of stable prices and a sort of safety umbrella for our customers, which makes them trust us. Therefore, the April growth of prices and next growth of prices in the third quarter, which is very possible, is not a very comfortable situation for us. But as I've said, the situation connected with the growth of prices in the raw materials forced us to actually introduce the increased prices. So that's all that we can actually say today. The beginning of third quarter will be connected with another increase of our prices. And we also hope that we will be able to develop our sales, because similarly to my colleagues, I am observing big demand for our products. That's all about our results. Now a novelty about our R&D center. We are showing you the slide of the service research that we've conducted in our laboratory last month, and these are very special kind of tests supervised by the British laboratory, consistent with British and American licenses. So this is one of the very few laboratories that can conduct this kind of tests. Well, that puts us in a very comfortable situation when it comes to obtaining the permits, licenses in American market. Because we are required to have actually be up to their standards, and we have a contract with American laboratory which allows us to actually carry out the tests independently. Now, investment plan. As the president and colleagues mentioned, in our segments, we are also following the plan. We are finishing mid-year a production hall in Opole. Well, there should not be any delays. So when it comes to investment plan, it seems that this year will be finalized as planned. And now a short information, marketing information. I don't know whether you've noticed, we have changed our logo, our motto, our strategy, and our approach to the market in promoting our products. We emphasize more the ecology, environmental friendliness, and so on. We are you may see that on TV. This is actually consistent with our strategy. The previous logo was functioning for 15 years, but now our vision, our work, our operation has changed so clearly that it had to be followed by a logo and approach change. That's all from me. Thank you so much, and I wait for your questions. And in the end, similarly to my colleagues, I will tell you that the situation in the coming months is also very optimistic. Two-digit growth in April, and May seems to be as optimistic. That's why we are very optimistic about the future, despite all the problems that we are facing. Thank you so much. And now let's move on to the financial part, consolidated financials that will be presented by Rafał Warpachowski. Over to you, Rafał. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. After my colleagues' presentations, we can expect that on the consolidated level, the news will be as good. Nearly 1 billion from sales. This is over 160 million zloty more than last year, 19% change. The growth. That's very good because in every segment we recorded volume and growths. So well, we have the growing prices of the raw materials, but operationally we grew the scale of our operations. As the president has mentioned, the first quarter was the most difficult during the pandemic. As regards the pandemic situation, the third wave hit us, and that had to be translated into the production. And we reached 200 million EBITDA, which is 55 million zloty more than last year. And half of this growth is actually attributed to President Lechowicz, and he explained this, why this changed. EBIT profit 162 million zloty, 50% growth year on year. In financial part, 2 million zloty net cost, profit around 1 million compensated with the positive exchange rate FX changes. We also had 14% for the deferred tax, which is actually connected with the updated forecast that was presented to you in April. These concerned our plans for the investments. 137 million zloty of net profit, 65% year-on-year growth year-on-year. So we are very positive about our results after the first quarter. And in April, we've decided to verify the annual forecast, also based on how we perceive the future months. And next slide, cash flow, 99 million cash flow in operational activity. This is lower amount year on year, but around 90 million zloty was the increased need for the working capital, which was mentioned by my colleagues, higher stocks, slightly higher stocks in order to secure our position because we've learned our lesson, but also net liabilities. And this is all connected with the operations and the growing raw materials, higher prices, growing level of sales and higher prices of raw materials. Well, we are phasing right now, so we can expect higher spendings, but really high EBITDA, despite of the increased working capital and capex. Well, we could still decrease our debt by 51 million. And that actually helped us to reach that net debt on the level of 0.5 billion. The indicator is 0.7. So that actually helped us to recommend the dividend on the level of 100% of the consolidated net profit, and that will be decided on 12th of May by the extraordinary meeting of shareholders. So the 1/4 of our debt is in foreign currencies, which is a natural security guarantee for our exposition connected with export. What will be happening in the coming months? Well, the situation on the market is perceived as stable or positive by us. Well, this should definitely help us to continue working at a full speed. Well, if the raw materials continue growing, then our revenues could actually grow by 10%. So we should actually go above 1 billion zloty next quarter. Well, the demand is not stopped, but there is a pressure for margin. This is on the side of our costs. So this is the element that should affect our operations. And now, investments, as we've said, our investments follow the plan. Well, the spendings should be higher in the coming months. And now operations. Well, we will focus on the security and safety of our employees and continuance of our operations. So we will address the possibilities on the market. And this is effective only when we are operationally very efficient. And now when it comes to finance, as I've mentioned, the dividend, 430 million zloty, planned by the management board and to be decided next week by the shareholders meeting, and the update of our forecast. So we've decided to increase our forecast by around 70 million zloty on the EBITDA level, and to increase our revenues up to 4 billion zloty. EBITDA 694 million zloty on the scale of the year is a very significant result, but we believe that our forecast for the second quarter is very good. And the third and fourth, we should, during the third and fourth quarter, we should see more pressure on the market because of the growing prices of raw materials, but we should tackle that problem as well. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the presentation. And now let's move on to the queries, Q&A session. And before I read the questions from the chat, let me read the questions that were sent to me via email before and during the presentation. So the first question concerns the flexible packaging segment. EBITDA margin has reached a very high level, 27%. So the question is, why is that? But Director Lechowicz has mentioned that. But the further part of the question, do you still stand by your belief that this will reach around 20% on a long run? And now over to Rafał Lechowicz. Please give your comment about the second part. So a long-term perspective of the margin, more that we planned in our strategy, or maybe the current circumstances allow you to say something more optimistic. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, as at today, the margin is over 27% of EBITDA. Will it be decreased, and what will be the level? Well, that all depends on the how efficiently we translate the growth of raw material prices onto our customers. Well, it's too early to say what will be the final result of this process. Why this high level of margin? What caused it? Well, it is caused by the fact that we are doing very fine on the market. Well, last year this margin was not really very much lower. As far as I can remember, it was 24.4% of EBITDA. So thank you so much. Thank you very much. And now we are moving on to the second question. Well, this is a more general question about the process of finding a potential investor for the flexible packaging segment. And I think that Mr. Warpechowski, financial director, will give us a brief answer to this question. Well, this process was launched, as far you can remember, in March. We said that it should take around 6 months if it is actually going according to the schedule that we've outlined. Well, this is happening, so that during the third quarter we should probably finalize this process. We can see that there is a lot of interest on the market. Well, we've sent out our queries, and soon we will send the information memorandum to the entities that are interested. So this process is going according to the schedule, and this is it will take us several months to know for sure. And if this is to be sold, we need actually the consent from the meeting of shareholders, so the market will be informed well in advance about the recommendations. But we are awaiting the offers. Thank you so much. And next questions: extruded product segment. So this will be for Director Wysocki. Well, how about the press booking at the moment? Well, that was actually presented already. So Director Wysocki has mentioned the level of booking. And next part of the question, have you been able to increase the premiums offered to the customers? What do you think about the current price of aluminium? Is it reaching the top, or maybe can we maybe we can expect more growth? So, well, I've actually mentioned how the presses are working, where we are fully booked, where we actually able to increase the margin. Yes, we did it. Well, we are the leader on the market, so if we are increasing the prices, everyone else is increasing the prices. So the question today is not how much or whether it is possible to purchase. So there, so the lack of supply is used by us to actually translate it into the price. But everyone is doing that. So what do we think about the current price of aluminum? I think that I've mentioned that 2,500 today and 2,550, and that the last time the levels were so high was 3 or 4 years ago. So uh, 2006, 2008 peak, which was over 3,000. Well, we are still far away, but when we are talking about billets, we've reached the peak. So what will be the situation in the future? All the forecasts were fo- so last 2 days meant the growth by $80. Maybe it can grow a little bit more, but at the level of 2,700 there will be a lot of pressure. So it may be the product may be just too expensive. So we may at this level today, 2,500, we may still be before the peak. So thank you. And the next question about the extruded products. Well, this question was answered partially as well. So in your strategy, you've mentioned the increased capacities by 18,000 tons until 2025. So can you actually give us more specific date? When should we expect this kind of increase? Well, I've actually mentioned that. So the increased production capacities is due to the investment in new press. July, August should be the launch. And as of September, we should be delivering, supplying products onto the market. We also have other ideas. They are part of our strategy. We will accelerate some of the investments so that now we will be actually able to provide more products. Well, we will be focusing on optimization. So next year, we will be able to increase our volume by several tons. So main growth end of 2022. We will start in September. In 2023, the press will be fully working, operational. So this is the whole technological line, 10,000 square meters full of machines. This is all, the press, the furnaces, and so on. So we are hoping for September to start the production. So this will be the first year with increased capacities. Thank you so much. Now about aluminium. The question is as follows. What are the forecasts for the coming quarters? Well, that was mentioned by President Grela. But the question is, do we have any effects of COVID? Well, only positive because the British market is developing, so we don't really have any negative effects of COVID. And a general question for all segments, are are we afraid of this substitution because of the high prices of aluminium products? Maybe our products will be replaced by some substitutes. Let's start with the extruded products. Piotr, are you afraid of substitutes? No, I am not afraid because, well, we were also working on other products, on replacing aluminium. We were trying to find something that could replace it. Well, looking at automotive, well, it moved from steel to aluminium. Now, what kind of material could replace aluminium? Since the technology started in 1990s, because the first tests research on aluminium in cars were conducted in 1990s. So we have several dozens of years on the research and use of this material. So I don't really see any other material that could live up to the potential of aluminium. I don't see any substitute here. How about the construction industry? Mr. Grella, plastic or wood? Well, our competitors are steel, plastic and wood. Steel and plastic, the raw material are more expensive. Now wood, we have technological barriers and the strategy for wooden products. So the sizes are the problem. Well, maybe if it was actually just about the growing prices of aluminium, then the situation would be concerning. But well, the prices are growing in all raw materials, so well, there is nothing to worry about now when it comes to wood. Also, the fire laws are important element here. Thank you so much. Another question is about uh, high premiums, high margins for billets, over 1,000 tons per dollars per ton. Do we have any forecast for how long this could sustain, and what could cause those premiums to go down? So with this high demand today for aluminium profiles, it seems that if we have additional capacities launched, then we could talk about the dropping price. We are talking about $1,000. And well, when it comes to 2022 and the beginning of 2022, we are talking about 1100. So billets are reaching the level of 1960, and then they dropped to 400 level. Well, today that happened. Today we are trying to secure our position when it comes to the amounts and the price. Well, this is something that we try to actually translate into the client. So where is the limit? Well, we were saying that this limit is at the level of 800. And well, we are talking about 1,000 and maybe 1,100 soon. So well, the opening of the market, what about actually dropping customs for the Russian billets? Well, this could affect the situation significantly. Well, this is the argument that is very tangible. That could actually strongly affect the price of the billet in Europe, and the price could drop down should it happen. Thank you so much. And we have a request for our member participant about flexible products. I think that Mr. Lechowicz has mentioned that, but if we could actually outline a perspective, a forecast for 1 quarter about the demand, will the demand stay on a good level? Or maybe you can foresee some slowdown connected with high prices of the raw materials. Okay, let me take a stance on that once again. Thank you so much for shortening this period for me. Well, definitely. I can actually give you my forecast about 1 quarter uh, in advance. But in this kind of untypical situation on the raw material market, it would be difficult to go beyond that. March was a record-setting month in the history of the segment. Well, we've ended April, and April, as President Grela has mentioned, that seems that April may be even better than March, so that means that April was good for us, and the remaining 2 months of the second quarter, we are a moderately optimistic, and well, definitely the second quarter should be quite positive. This is our opinion, but we don't really want to go farther in time. And the second part of question, what was the second part of question? Well, this question was about vision for the coming quarter. No, it was also about the demand. Well, this demand is not too high. Well, the situation here is completely different than in other segments. We are on the other side of this barricade. The EU introduced price barriers for Chinese profiles, which helps our colleagues, but our situation is different. Well, we buy foil in China, and it will also be imposed with the anti-dumping customs duties. So the legislation is not a help for us. So this is one thing. Well, this demand is not too high. I need to emphasize that, especially as the slide showed you, we are facing this situation, especially in the packaging segment. The demand is not too high. It's not really very good, very easy to get new customers. If the HoReCa actually revives, if the hotels are actually starting operating well, then the situation will change. Well, this HoReCa industry is a big miss for us, and a similar situation is propylene in the foils. Well, there is not a problem to sell the material, to produce material and sell it cheaply. But if you want to sell it at a good price, it's not so easy. Thank you so much. Another question for Director Warpechowski about his forecast about the second quarter and the growth by around 10% above what we've reached during the first quarter. Was it about the value or maybe volume of sales? Well, it will be greatly correlated. When we are talking about the volumes, well, 10% was a direct result of the value. So we believe in a slight growth with the stable ongoing level of raw material prices. So this is the value. So there will be the quality and quantity element here. But I was talking about the value when I was telling you about the 10% growth. Moving back to the aluminium, and a comment from one of our participants is as follows. So taking into consideration the growing revenues, the margin has behaved was very stable, so it didn't grow significantly. And is it the result of the growing prices of the raw materials? So the question is, how about the coming quarters with the increases introduced? Can we count that the margin will grow versus the first quarter? Or maybe we are just talking about maintaining the situation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you must remember that the price of the aluminium input that we buy in Polish zloty, well, the sales on the Polish market, we are talking about 40% growth year on year. So maintaining margin level with the drastically high raw material prices seems to be a quite successful achievement. Of course, the increase in prices in April should benefit us in the coming years, months. Well, when it comes to the raw materials, we are planning another increase in prices in order to compensate the growing prices of raw materials. Well, we want to maintain a high level of margin. We want to actually maintain this very good level of margin with the growing volume of sales, which should positively translate to EBITDA level, even despite the no growth of margin. Well, the volume should contribute to additional points on the level of profit. Thank you so much. And we have one more question about the flexible packaging segment. And this question is about the proposed amendments in the regulations on the fee for packaging. Do you perceive it as a risk? Maybe President Lechowicz, a short comment. Yes, of course. At this moment, we are not seeing it as a risk because we familiarized ourselves with the draft law, draft bill, and it does not concern us a lot. I'm talking about the version from the 18th of March this year. It does not affect us, concern us, because this is about the additional environmental cost for the entities who introduce the packaging on the market. So that does not concern us. Well, additionally, those fees should apply to a piece of product. Well, that also means that we are not the addressee of those additional burdens. So as at today, I don't really see any further concerns or risks, but I don't know what will happen in the legislation. Well, if should it change, then we will inform you about. Well, the only product that we sell by piece is the packaging for the ice cream, but this is without aluminium. So as of today, this problem does not concern us when it comes to the draft bill. These are the customers who are the same customers are our competitors' customers. Well, they will try to translate the growth of cost onto us. But they may also try to increase the price of their products. And as we've recently observed this in Poland, the growth of taxes affect mostly the end user. So this is the situation today. Thank you so much. And another question, but this relates more to financial area. And the user is asking, the participant is user. Well, the EBITDA 37% growth year on year, and the result 50% year on year. Does that mean that the investment is replaced by the machines that have been amortized, or maybe there are amortization drops? Well, what we can hear, the percentage growth is a direct result of the fact that the amortization is not changing significantly, and this is a mathematical rule. And of course, we are optimizing our investments when it comes to maintenance, so the machines are working well, but we also want to focus on the development. So this is 50 to 50 in our strategic concept. Well, there is no situation with significant changes also in the annual review of the usability period for our machines. There are no significant changes in amortization. Well, CapEx is still on ongoing level, and the replacement of machines and construction of new ones during this period. Well, we've just finalized a big investment process, but that was in 2019. Well, now we're talking about one-off investments. In extruded products, for instance, but well, these machines will be launched in the future, so we are talking about the amortization in the coming period. Thank you so much. And now another question about the growth of production capacities. Well, it was also partially answered. And it is about the extruded products. And in the flexible packaging segment, Mr. Lechowicz, would you like to tell us more about the planned growth of production capacities? Well, I don't really want to talk about this because it is strongly correlated with the process connected with the price of the flexible packaging segment and the consequences of that process. So as of today, you've probably read our strategy 2020-2025. We are not planning any big investments. Well, the expenditures are focusing on maintaining our machine park on a good level, so that serves us well. Well, this is a digression from me. We are not a big supporter of aggressive building of our capacities, because when we talk about our results and EBITDA, this is about the price, not just the amount. Because as I've mentioned that during the presentation, well, we can actually sell 50% more, and in the very end, the profit may not be much higher or even the same as the profit when you run a good policy focused on amortization, on a good use of machines. So at this point of time, the situation is very good for us. And before this process is finalized, I don't really want to talk about that in bigger detail. Thank you so much. And other questions? Please comment whether there are any entities on the market that can be potentially interesting for the company, or the company may be potentially interested in buying them. Maybe Director Warpechowski. Well, this is also connected with the ongoing process of the flexible packaging segment. Well, we are monitoring and observing the market all the time, and as we've said in our strategy, we are not excluding the transaction in the basic, in the core operations, but today there is no situation that could be reported to you. There is nothing interesting that we could report to you. So this is the situation. Well, in terms of the economic situation, well, it is very good. If the question includes a thesis that you can buy somebody cheaply, and we were in a good financial situation, that I'd like to confirm that yes, our financial situation is very good, but there is not really any entity on the market that would be very weak but very good potential. So the entities on the market right now are in good condition. So our approach is quite standard, and there is nothing concrete that we have to share today. So, and the last question that I can see on the chat and in my email box, is about the
biorąc pod
extruded products.
uwagę
Now, taking into
doświadczenie, jakie
account
mamy
the
z lat 14-15
experience that we have
odnośnie skoku
from
premii
2014
wlewkowych,
2015 about
czy w
the
jaki sposób
growing
obecnie
price
te
of the
premie
billets,
są powiązane w
are those
formułach,
premiums
kontraktach,
actually connected
czy
in
nadal jest to
formulas, in
sprawa taka
contracts,
bardziej
or maybe
otwarta i
this is
zawsze
something
do
open
negocjacji
and
z
will always be
odbiorcą?
negotiated with
No,
the
to
recipient?
źródło
Well,
tak,
let me tell
to
you
premia
shortly.
dodatkowa jest wprowadzana w cenie w
Well,
kontrakcie.
the
Nieraz jest to
billet
wskazane
premium is
bezpośrednio,
in the
nieraz jest to
contract.
wskazane z jakiegoś źródła.
Often
Takim
it is
źródłem się
indicated
posługujemy.
directly
Mamy
what is the
mechanizm
source. We have the
przenoszenia ceny
mechanism
wlewka na klienta.
of actually translating the price of the billet into the
Bardzo
customer.
dziękuję,
So
panie
thank you so much,
dyrektorze. To,
director.
tak jak
As I've
wspomniałem,
mentioned,
było
that was the
ostatnie
last
pytanie
question that we had today
dotyczące
about the
prezentacji
presentation
wyników
of
i
the
perspektyw.
results and the
Bardzo
perspectives,
dziękuję
the
wszystkim
forecasts. I'd like to
uczestnikom
thank all our
za
participants
poświęcony
for their
czas.
time, and
Zapraszam
I would
na
also like to
konferencję po wynikach
invite you
drugiego
to our
kwartału.
conference
Zobaczymy, w
after
jakiej
the second
formule.
quarter. We'll see what will be the
Miejmy nadzieję
formula.
w
Let's
formule
hope
bardziej
that it will
analogowej,
be
czyli
more analog,
bezpośrednio,
so a
ale
direct
to
meeting,
się
but
okaże.
well, we'll see. We would like to wish you
Życzymy
all
wszystkim
good health.
zdrowia.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Dziękuję.